I just left my wife. What's going on, our space fans today? We've got a few stories for you. One about a guy who doesn't need any advice and actually feels pretty good about himself, and a couple who could probably use some thoughts and advice. Let's get into it. First off, I just left my wife and I feel 100 fine about it. 10 years ago, I thought I had the perfect life, upper six-figure job, beautiful wife, clean house, 2 new cars, and a child on the way. My job made me happy and I was good at it, and the stability was great. My wife loved me for me and ignored my flaws as I tried to perfect them. In return, I adored her and we seemed to be the perfect couple. People would always compliment us and talk about how envious they were of our relationship and everything. It kept getting better. I kept getting promotions. The kids, now 3, were born, and we eventually moved from an ordinary house to an incredibly nice one. My wife was doing very well in her career, optometrist, and we took fun vacations every year. Again, I thought I had it made. I don't know how this would have prompted it, but in early 2015, I bought her a Tesla for her birthday. She hadn't gotten a new car since 2008, and I kept getting new cars. Therefore, I surprised her. She loved it, loved me. I remember spending that entire day just taking rides in it and figure out how all the gadgets and icons worked. It was complete downhill from there. I don't know how that would have triggered anything, but in the months following, she became increasingly distant from not only me, but from her children. My oldest 10, female, in particular, felt hurt by this and would often try to ensue conversations with her mother in order to get her talking. Some days this would work and she would be pleasant. Others it would have had the opposite effect. The first time I suspected that I was no longer her man of choice was in July 2016, when I noticed she was no longer going to yoga classes but telling me she was. We were on the same phone plan, and part of that plan was we could see our locations of our phones. I was routinely browsing the app one day and noticed she appeared to be at someone's house, since she had been irrationally angry that day prior to leaving. I didn't question her about it when she got home from yoga. Instead, I chose to closely observe where she went during her yoga times. It would always seem to end up at the same house, a well-off neighborhood, probably a step above ours, a little north of town. I was getting ready to confront her when I noticed that she had been returning to yoga again. During this period, she became incredibly distant and hormonal. My entire family had noticed this behavior going on for over a year now. But I had had enough. I sat her down and asked her what was going on. She gave me the cold shoulder, and when I questioned her about the yoga locations, she accused me of stalking, invading privacy, and being a great dick. That's when I asked her, "Are you cheating on me?" Of course, the answer was no. What followed in the weeks to come was distrust, hatred, and plain anger towards me. It was clear she knew I had caught on and was now trying to play the "I can't believe you'd think this" victim card, but I knew I saw through it all. When she finally admitted she had seen and slept with another man, that's when I made my mistake. I forgave her. She told me she loved me, she loved our family, and in that moment, I believed her. I thought she could change. I was wrong. We tried marriage therapy, we tried taking adult days. It seemed to work. We were happy, and she was genuinely having fun, and it seemed like I had the old her back. I was relieved. This allowed me to pour more time into my kids and my work, and have less stress over all. My business trip to San Diego, I live on the East Coast, USA, was cut short. My colleague fell ill, and our clients insisted that we reschedule. It was a hassle, but we caught the next flight out and returned home. I'm not sure why I didn't tell her I was coming home, but I just didn't. Maybe I wanted it to be a surprise. The only surprise I received when I pulled into the driveway was seeing a Ford SUV in my garage and finding not one but 2 men in my bed with my wife. This all happened yesterday. I'm finally putting it into words. My wife started babbling when it happened, desperately trying to explain. I heard none of it. I walked out of my room, went to the basement, and poured myself a drink. I could hear the men upstairs leaving, and when I returned upstairs, it was my wife sitting there, closed with a sad smile on her face. She started talking, but I wouldn't have it. I told her to get out. I told her to get out of my house. I informed her that I'd get her stuff to her by the end of the week. She tried to pull the "what about the kids" bullcrap, but I was just done. I'm sad, but not for her. I'm sad for my kids, and I'm sad for whatever poor soul she meets next. I will fight hard for my kids, but my biggest fear is losing them. I know the court will rule, and incredibly in favor of mothers. I hope they realize that I've spent the last 3 years doing my best to mend a broken marriage for my family, and nothing has worked. I told my kids this morning. They asked why Mom didn't spend the night last night. I didn't make them go to school today. They're all upstairs together. This whole situation is terrible for everyone involved. It could have been completely preventable. I don't pity my wife. I hope that she has one label for the rest of her life. Cheater. I want her to follow her. I want people to know she is a prominent optometrist in our area. This could very well hurt her business if word spreads, which it very well may. Thought you. I caught my wife cheating. Should know. A happy update. Greetings again. Not sure if you remember me, but I posted here around 2 months ago with the story of how I caught my wife cheating and what it did to our family. I was incredibly distraught. But as of July 13th, 2018, our civil court case has officially concluded. It was a quick and easy process, and I was victorious in everything. I'm not sure if this violates any rules, so mods, please feel free to remove. But I figured since I received such positive support from my last post, it would be my duty to post an update. Please feel free to skip over the long paragraphs if you don't want to read. I'll post too long. Didn't read at the end 2 months ago. I came home from a business trip to find my wife in bed with 2 men. This was after multiple years of her deliberately deceiving our family, and I was foolish enough to take her back after I already caught her cheating with someone much older and much richer than me. After telling her to get out, she became hostile and threatened to take my kids away from me. I was beyond concerned at this point. I've heard horror stories in the courtrooms about mothers getting their way no matter what, so I had no idea what to expect. I had to take time off from work this summer because I was consistently feeling sick and couldn't deal with the thought of my ex-wife watching over our children. If they grow up anything to be like her, I'll consider myself a parental failure. I put in my plea for full custody and officially filed her divorce on May 21, 2018. I hired a lawyer for my best friend at work, who initially tried to do it all for free after he heard what happened. But I simply wouldn't feel right, and he hopped on the case together. We went through my phone records, her phone location records, and gathered everything we possibly could to build our case. Court ceremony began on July 12, the week after my kids and I returned from our vacation. I did not take them out of state for my lawyer's advice, but it was a good little distraction. My 10-year-old daughter, oldest, seemed to be emotionally stable enough to answer some questions by both lawyers, even after I requested her not to have to deal with this whole thing. She stated how my ex-wife had been difficult and paranoid for the last year, but she had learned to live with it, which is something no child should have to experience.